Osgood Perkins is fast becoming one of the defining voices of contemporary horror. Once known simply as the son of psycho legend Anthony Perkins, he's now carved a chilling niche of his own, one built on atmosphere, emotional decay, and psychological unease. From The Blackcoat's Daughter, 2015, to I and the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, 2016, and then the breakout success of Longlegs, 2024. Perkins has steadily evolved into a true auteur. Now, with his upcoming feature Keeper, he appears poised to deliver his most terrifying and ambitious work yet, one that may even eclipse the haunting success of Longlegs. A cabin, an anniversary, and an entity that knows too much. Scheduled for release on November 14th, Keeper reunites Perkins with indie powerhouse Neon and stars Tatiana Maslany, She-Hulk, Orphan Black, and Rossif Sutherland, Possessor. The premise is deceptively simple. Liz, Maslany, and her husband Malcolm, Sutherland, retreat to a remote cabin for their anniversary, but when he abruptly leaves for the city, Liz finds herself alone with something dark that begins to unravel the cabin's and her own hidden past. On paper, it sounds like a familiar setup, but in Perkins's hands, simplicity becomes the perfect vessel for existential horror. Early reports describe Keeper as minimalist, surreal, and suffocating, a psychological descent that trades cheap scares for emotional terror. Filmed in Vancouver and backed by the same creative team that made Longlegs an art house horror sensation, Keeper promises to be both intimate and unsettling, an evolution, not just a repetition, of Perkins's growing filmography. The evolution of a modern horror auteur. Perkins's career trajectory is remarkable for its consistency. His early works relied on slow-burn storytelling and a ghostly stillness that favored atmosphere over spectacle. But with Longlegs, starring Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage, Perkins achieved what few horror directors manage: critical acclaim and commercial triumph. The film's $10 million budget ballooned into $128 million at the global box office, making it Neon's highest domestic earner and cementing Perkins's status as horror's new visionary. That film's combination of satanic lore, FBI procedural, and emotional horror proved that Perkins could merge arthouse sensibility with mainstream appeal. It also laid the groundwork for The Monkey, 2025, a Stephen King adaptation that expanded his reach while preserving his signature touch: haunting imagery, ambiguous morality, and psychological disquiet. Now, with Keeper, Perkins is refining his craft even further, returning to the intimacy of isolation while pushing thematic boundaries on grief, legacy, and the unseen monsters that inhabit memory. Why Keeper already looks scarier than Longlegs. Where Longlegs was loud, frantic, and steeped in occult chaos, Keeper looks quieter, but infinitely more unnerving. Perkins has hinted that the horror here is more internal, rooted in emotional absence and personal unraveling. The absence of jump scares in favor of slow-building dread plays to his greatest strength, crafting terror that feels disturbingly human. The claustrophobic cabin setting channels the creeping loneliness of the Blackcoat's Daughter and the domestic decay of I and the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, but with higher stakes and a sharper focus. Early trade reactions compare it to Hereditary in tone and The Witch in pacing, films that prioritize unease over shock, leaving viewers unsettled long after the credits roll. Critics have already suggested that Keeper could become the next great psychological horror, with directors like Guillermo del Toro and James Wan reportedly praising Perkins's mastery of mood and minimalism. For a filmmaker once considered too quiet for mainstream audiences, that's a remarkable turnaround. From legacy to legend. Part of what makes Keeper such a fascinating prospect is its meta-layered resonance. Perkins, the son of cinema's most iconic horror figure, is now stepping out of that shadow entirely. His films are about legacy, familial, emotional, and spiritual, and Keeper appears to push that obsession to its logical extreme. Perkins doesn't deal in monsters so much as he does in hauntings, echoes of the past that cling to his characters. The entity in Keeper may be supernatural, but like in Longlegs, it's also metaphorical, a manifestation of guilt, repression, and the terror of solitude. This layered approach not only distinguishes Perkins from his peers but elevates him to the level of filmmakers like Ari Aster, Midsommar, Robert Eggers, The Lighthouse, and Jordan Peele, Get Out, who use horror to dissect the human psyche. The keeper of modern horror's future. With 3 high-profile releases in just 2 years, Longlegs, The Monkey, and now Keeper, Osgood Perkins is proving that horror can be both intelligent and commercially viable. Neon's strategic backing, combined with Perkins's growing creative freedom, suggests that Keeper could define the next phase of elevated horror. What began as a career defined by eerie stillness has become a movement of confident storytelling. Keeper represents not just the next chapter for Osgood Perkins, but a declaration. Horror still has uncharted depths, and Perkins intends to explore every one of them. If Longlegs was the scream, Keeper might just be the silence that follows, and it's always the silence that haunts the longest.